1961. You know, I showed this to my dad, and we talked about it, but we never went through with actually putting it into the car. But that was really my first solution. When I was 22 years old, I was presented with, well, all of us will remember a microfilm. And remember, the readers were probably this big. I designed a microfilm reader you could put in your wallet because I had this idea that if we could, you know, make that smaller, that you could carry your complete medical history with you. So if you were in an accident or something, you could just look through this reader I developed and be able, you know, emergency services will be able to see if there were allergies or any of those types of things. Two congressmen back at the time on the North Shore were looking to turn it into military dog tags, using the idea that I had for dog tags. But then technology kind of moved microfilm out of the way, and other things came in its place. But those are the types of things that I've been doing most of my life. Most of my life is based on this idea of problem solving. But there were two things that happened to me when I was between the ages of 8 and 10 that's really kind of set the direction for me. When I was 8 years old, my dad left our family. Within 2 years, my mom became an alcoholic. She married an alcoholic. My brother became a heroin addict. My sister kind of lost touch with reality, and they put my dog to sleep. So by the time I was 10 years old, I was a mess. I had the beginning of an ulcer. I was out of school more than I was in school. I was having all types of challenges. So that happens when I'm 8. At 9 years old, I was poisoned by pesticides. And they thought that I had polio because I was just for almost a week almost totally disabled. That really affected my learning in school. I went from a pretty good student in the 3rd grade to being at the bottom of my class all the way through grammar school and high school. But what it seemed to do is awaken even more the creativity I had. And I was able to extend this idea of problem solving into a number of different areas while I developed into the entrepreneur that I guess I consider myself now. But, you know, going through that experience with my family really set me up for having a very strong empathy for people, you know, to really, it really allowed me to feel other people's pain and always looking for solutions for that. So it's not surprising that Alicia and I started Daniel's Table 11 years ago. You know, if you were to look at my life, it looked like this. Different, you know, we owned restaurants for 16 years. We were in publishing for 12 years. My first real business was an arm wrestling business called New England Wrist Wrestling Championships. Why? Because I was really good arm wrestling. So if I won, I didn't have to pay the prizes. So, and we would hold those throughout New England. But I've always been that type of person, always just looking for, you know, kind of finding my way, because I wasn't, it wasn't going to work, you know, me being in college or those types of things. So I just found, hey, how are you? So 11 years ago, we started Daniel's Table. And during the early period, probably the first 6 months, I was having Chinese food with my wife. And I said to her, what would it look like if we just ended hunger in Framingham? And we both started laughing. Well, that's never been done before. Let's, you know, who are we to think that we could do it? 2 weeks later, I heard of an organization called Mary's Meals. Have any of you ever heard of Mary's Meals? No, no one ever has. I'm going to go back. I'm going to get the dates wrong, but I'll go back 25 years. two brothers from Scotland were in Eastern Europe and brought food, rented an old truck and brought food behind the lines in Bosnia during the Bosnian War. Today, they serve 2 million meals per day all over the world. When I discovered them, they had just reached 1 million meals a day. They have to be the largest organization that no one has ever heard of, because I have probably spoken to 20,000 people, and I would, on one hand, would someone actually recognize who Mary's Meals is. It's got to be one of the, again, one of the largest organizations in the world. And they do that. So after I discovered Mary's Meals, I started thinking about Framingham again and saying, well, wait a minute. If they can do 1 million meals a day, 7,000 shouldn't be that big of a deal. And so it was at that point that I decided, okay, this is going to be my focus until I can get it done. We're now in year 11 of that. And during those 11 years, we've run into different challenges.
Yeah, I think so.
And so hasn't the country. In 1969, the Nixon White House held a conference on hunger and said, we're going to end hunger now and forever. 53 years later, I stood in a room with President Biden in Washington, and their commitment was, we're going to end hunger by 2030. 53 years between the two, and nothing changed.
Yeah.
In 1980, the percentage of those that are hungry or food insecure in the United States was 13.9. Prior to COVID, it was 13.2. We've added 200 food banks and 90,000 organizations like mine. And the hunger level, the food insecurity level has not changed at all. And so that presented a challenge. So I was like, curious when we first started, well, why is that, or how can that even be possible with all the effort we're putting into this? So I could talk to you for hours about this, but I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the things that we see. First thing is, instead of investing in health, we invest in illness. So Governor Baker came out 2.5 years ago, said we spend conservatively between hospitals and insurance $2.4 billion a year on food insecurity issues, extra trips to the hospital, mental health, challenges with children, all of these types of things. So when you break that down, that's between about 12 and $18 million for Framingham, when you could solve it for $7 million. So, and we've presented this, we've talked to government, we've talked, I've been at the State House having this conversation, but it seems that they would rather do this at 12 to $18 million than $7 million to solve it. So that's one of the challenges. The second one is that, and it happens to most nonprofits, you start off with this big heart for something that you want to do, and all of a sudden you start building what I call the machine. You have employees, you have rent, you've got mortgage, you get all those things, and all of a sudden that concern takes over. I got to keep doing things. I've got to be constantly telling donors that I've distributed thousands and thousands of pounds of food, so they'll just keep sending me money. And we start losing the reason that we started in the first place. We stop, that idealism, is exchanged for, how am I going to make sure that all the bills are paid on a monthly basis? So that's one of the challenges. The final one that I'm going to talk to you about is the cost of doing good. So imagine that a can of beans costs $1. Okay, keep that in your mind. So a manufacturer makes it, say for 20 cents. And then he donates it to the Greater Boston Food Bank. So he also gets a tax deduction of about 30 cents for that. It gets on a truck, which adds to its expense, and then goes to the Greater Boston Food Bank, which adds their expense to it. And then it gets on a truck, and which adds an expense, and then it goes to the United Way Depot in Framingham. They have their expenses, gets on another truck, and comes to our building. And we add the most expense because we're distributing all of those types of things. So what happens is that dollar can of beans now costs about $1.75 to $2. So when you think of donating, that's almost 30 to 50% of your money is going into this process that's unnecessary. We would be much better off working. What I always say is keep food in the for-profit world for as long as you can, and then pay for it when you need it. So we would be much better off with a voucher program to Market Basket. Would be less expensive than all that we do. Well, you know how much work we spend. One of my volunteers here, how much work we spend putting all of this together. But it really is the cost of doing good is much too high. It doesn't necessarily make sense. So there are two things. There's the things that have a cost to them, and then there are things that what I call priceless. You teach someone how to cook a vegetable they're unfamiliar with, they'll carry that recipe for the rest of their lives. It's those types. You work with children, so they're eating more vegetables. They carry that for the rest of their lives. There's all of those types of things that we would be much better off using an organization or a company like Market Basket for that, and really focus all our energies on what we call things that are priceless. Doing something like that. These are just questions. The questions we always get as when people are interested in supporting us is how many pounds of food have you distributed? How many people are you helping? And what is your administrative cost? Those are 3 questions we get. And I look at those questions and, well, those really don't have any meaning, because I could be distributing 1 million pounds of food, but if it's cabbage, it's not going to have the effect that I want. I could be serving 10,000 clients, but if I'm not serving them well and I'm not giving them what they need, there's a challenge there. So these are the questions as donors that should be asked. Are you sharing data with other nonprofits? Presently, most nonprofits sit in their silos. And so in a city like Framingham, imagine that there's 7 food providers. We could all be feeding the same 500 people, and we have no idea if that's true or not. That's a problem. Because, in Framingham, it's estimated there are about 7,000 people that are food insecure. In the reality, we're probably all feeding about 2,500 of those 7,000. So are they sharing data? So, and I'm going to show you a piece of software. I'm going to show you the solution that I came up with for this. Another question we should be asking is, what is your client exit plan? Every nonprofit should have an exit plan for their clients. Here is your way out. Because what happens is nonprofits are very good at building big doors for you to get in and very little tiny doors for you to get out. And so we're looking, even right now, this has been a major conversation in our organization is, what is that exit plan going to look like? For some people, it's going to be a continuation of what we're doing, of feeding them, because they don't have a way of getting out. Maybe they're elderly, or they're disabled, or there's illness, or any of those types of things. Maybe there isn't a way out, but for most people there is. And finally, the next question, do you have a lived experience advisory board? What that means is bringing people in that are affected by food insecurity and start getting their advice. You know, nonprofit leaders tend to build these organizations without really going out into the community and asking the community what they need. And so this is a great question. You know, if these are the questions that we want our donors to be asking us. For these questions here. So we've talked a little about some of the challenges, but let's talk about a solution. I've never entered into a project that's been successful having experience in that area. And so I knew in my head that I needed to develop a software package that could coordinate the efforts of all nonprofits, send out referrals, be able to, you know, create an environment that we could be successful. But I have no software experience. But that didn't stop me. So I got online and I found a developer, a young girl. She's in her early 30s, in Vietnam, and I started working with her on this application. About 4 months later, I said, "Okay, who do you know that's better than you?" And she introduced me to someone else, and so we brought him on board. And then I asked him, "Okay, who do you know that's better than you?" And I brought them on board. And we've been together for 3 years now, working on a variety of about 6 different applications that are designed for the nonprofit world to just pull everything together. So this is one of our apps called Healthy Communities. This is a demo of it because I can't show you real data. We actually use this at Daniel's table, and we have over 4,000 clients in it. So it all starts with an intake. And I truly believe that this helps us move toward a solution. Jim McGovern, our congressman from Massachusetts, was in our building about 16 months ago now and saw this. And he's been working on hunger since the 70s. And he said that this was the missing piece. That if we could implement this into cities, that we could actually have a fighting chance of. So I'm going to skip over some of it. It's basically asking some questions, but how the system works is it determines how much food is missing out of a person's month. So
Based
we're
on individuals.
right, or families. Yep. And so we ask them a series of questions about financials, all of those types of things, and then the system determines, it calculates how many days of food is missing. And this person here, or this family, is 14 days, 15 days, roughly. We always add an extra day, and then the system slide up, breaks it down into the 5 food categories. So I can look at a family and say, okay, in order for you to be whole, this is what you need. And then we work to provide that to them. We've searched the country, there's no system like this out there. So not only does it do that, we also start talking to them about heat and electricity and housing and, you know, are they homeless, transportation, all of those types of things. And if we hear something like that, someone's having a challenge with housing, we can just make a referral to whomever. is in need of that. It's a full inventory, so every nonprofit in the city can be on this, and it connects them all together. So if a client comes to us and we distribute part of this food here, if they go to another nonprofit, the nonprofit can just put in an app that we developed. This is what I just gave that same client, and it comes off of their totals. So what we're always shooting for is for these numbers to be zero at the end of the month. Now, if they're not, if a client leaves 75 servings of vegetables, available at the end of the month, it gives us an opportunity to have a conversation with them. Is it because it's not the right vegetables? Is it because you don't know how to cook them? What are some of the challenges with that? And then we deal with it.
So those are servings.
These are they're American servings.
Okay.
A pound of pasta has 8 servings. If I'm hungry, there's might be 1.5.
Yeah.
So we adjusted it for the American diet. But what this allows us to do is to really to take care of the client in a way that is, one, gives them dignity, but it also gives them the nutrition that they need. We have been in an environment, especially over the past 20 years, where you go to a food pantry and they'll give you 2 bags or 3 bags of random food, or they give you a huge amount. We have a nonprofit in Framingham that gives out about once a month, about 300 pounds of food. And so what happens is it's in a cart. There are people that walk there. So if there are people that walk there, you're not carrying 300 pounds of food. So they're dropping it along the road until they get to a point where they can carry it with the food that they want. Or they go to a dumpster and just throw the food into the dumpster, the food that they don't want or can't carry. So there's this system allows us to be accurate and effective in the way that we're feeding people that isn't available.
David, how do you get the clients, and do you sit down with them for this questionnaire? How do you get the clients?
They come to us, we're going to them. One of the biggest challenges that all nonprofits have is they don't really know what the actual need is in their community. Just prior to COVID, and a little bit during COVID, we're actually starting a survey of every single home in Framingham with basically a door hanger saying, "Are you okay? If you're not, reach out to us." And so we did about 17% of the city, and picked up about 1,000 clients through that. Right now there is regional data, and so regional data will say, well, 13% of Framingham residents are food insecure. And when I heard that 11 years ago, my first question, being naive to the whole process, is, well, who are they? And well, we have no idea who they are. This is just information. It's just a guess. And so we've always looked at, in order to handle any basic need, you have to know who the person is. I can't help you if I don't know who you are. And so that's really been part of this drive. We're gonna, now that COVID is over, reestablish that process and reach every single home in Framingham, and to make sure that we're having the conversations that we need to have with the people that are in need. It's my vision, and I don't know if this will come into play or not, or my hope is that I'll be able to go to every single home and stand in front of any apartment building in Framingham, look at it and go, okay, I know what's going on with that. I know what apartments need help, because it'll all be on a tablet that we'll be able to do that with. This was 3 years of development. There's way more in here than I could show you in even a couple of hours. There's inventory control. There's all different other types of things. So is there any question on? No, go ahead.
Well, I work for the DTA food stamps.
Yep.
Is there any effort being made to either legislatively or just cooperatively working with who's on their rolls versus who's not on your rolls? To
Yes, I
prepare
mean,
and
we're
collect or,
yes, we are talking, we talk to all of our clients about SNAP.
Right.
Because 65% of our client base are Portuguese speaking.
right,
There's a fear. There's a fear of being connected to the government. And so a lot of people that qualify will,
so they're underground,
they're underground.
okay.
Yeah.
But what about contacting the ones, the DTA to get their list to see compared to who's not on your list that you can contact and see if there's a, you know what I mean?
I do, yes. I'm concerned about
Oh, it's privacy,
permissions, things that we'd have to get.
right, but I mean, it's just the
Yes.
idea of, of making something more concrete.
Yeah.
They have that data,
Right.
can they share with you?
Right.
So,
Yeah, in some way. I'm really not sure if they, yeah, it would be great if they would.
Yeah, but I mean, is that something that you can
Mm-hmm.
work on or you've thought of addressing or?
Yeah, I mean, we've addressed SNAP in a number of different ways. I haven't reached out to directly. I haven't done that.
Right.
Just because I've just,
You're busy.
I'm busy. Well, yeah, and it kind of, maybe a little bit, I'm anticipating some frustration
Oh, yeah.
with that process.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
Definitely.
okay.
What determines the food breakdown, and do clients have input into that?
No, well, they have input into the types. So everything is calculated off of this chart. So it's based on gender and age. So it determines how many servings. And so it's calculating this combined with their income and some other calculations to be able to produce these numbers over here.
What about the different kinds of fruit, vegetables per nationality? Or,
Well,
you know, ethnic origin or something like that?
We do work with that as much as we can.
Yeah,
We're in conversations right now because even at Daniel's table, right now, the season is almost over. We get a lot of great produce during the summer. Today we got tomatoes that probably about this big,
yeah,
but that's going to end.
right,
And so now we're going to have to rely on the Greater Boston Food Bank for what they can come up with. But we've been talking internally about building a system that would provide, we would have 18 vegetable choices, 5 fruit choices,
wow,
3 protein choices, or 4 with beans, but chicken, pork, beef,
yeah,
3 different types of dairy, so milk and cheese.
Yeah.
And then some snacks.
Mm.
And so we're really looking into that. We're talking to purveyors to see if we can work something out with them. We're gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Which gets expensive for Daniel's table. But if we go back to that idea of, the cost of doing good, and you look at the expense over the system, it's much less. And so what I keep, saying to people is, we don't need the Greater Boston Food Bank. We don't need, these types of, what we need is the money that they're getting and connected to a solution that makes sense. And so it's really creating a shift in the way that we operate as nonprofits.
right, yeah. How many nonprofits are there in Framingham and how many are you connected with this?
There are, let's see, There are probably about 9 nonprofits that distribute food in Framingham,
Yeah.
and we are connected to 0.
Really,
Back,
residents, yeah,
back in 2013, I owned a restaurant back then in Framingham. I invited all of the nonprofits to come, all of the funders to come. So there's probably about 15, 20 people in the room. And I was just talking about this idea of collaboration. You know, if we collaborated, this would be easy. We'd all be working part-time.
yeah,
And I said, so what do you think of that? And being in sales, I knew that the next person that talks loses.
Huh.
And so I stood there for 3 minutes and no one said a word.
no, everybody wants their fight to.
And so I thanked them, and it has not changed in 10 years. It hasn't changed at all.
Wow.
I have invited them for breakfast. I invited 60 nonprofits. Just come and look at this. We have a solution here. I will make you breakfast.
Mm.
4 people responded, well, if we can do it by Zoom, I'll be there. I said, well, I can't cook you breakfast
Yeah,
by Zoom,
yeah,
but it's been that challenge. And so really there's 2 ways to do this. There's the hard way of constantly trying to pull nonprofits on, and I haven't had much success with it.
Mm.
Or you re-educate the donor.
are they afraid of losing control?
There.
Is that the biggest concern, you think?
It's yes, because clients are money. Clients are funding.
Yeah,
So if I lose some of my clients, I was told by a leader of a nonprofit, because I was going to be doing something with the homeless and talking about actually solving this
Mm.
in Framingham. He said, well, if you do that, then I'm going to lose my homeless. And I had to remind him that, well, yeah, they're homeless, but they're not yours. They're, and so it's really that almost that sense of the ownership of people is really what's controlling.
Mm.
But the fast way is to re-educate the donor. If you're asking better questions of the people or organizations you're donating to, and you said to nonprofits on a Thursday afternoon, I'm going to stop my funding until you get on a platform where you're sharing data
Mm.
and doing that. Friday morning, every nonprofit would be on that system.
Mm.
And so it's really my next, I'll give myself 5 years. My next 5 years is really that journey of educating the donor.
And is there a method from the manufacturer who makes the can of beans to come directly to you? Or through you, or through an organization that you can say, I have 9 nonprofits in my town, send them to me, and
We would still be, okay, so think of it this way. I have a 6,500 square foot building. Dedicated to helping people, with food insecurity.
Mhm.
If I relied on Market Basket, I know run that organization out of this chair. It just, it's like SNAP, it's like food stamps. It's one of the best programs this country has developed over the years.
Mm.
It's very efficient, it works. When there was the extra money during COVID, it took half of the kids that were in poverty, it took them out of that.
Mm.
We should continue that type of program. But if we're not going to, then we need to be looking at programs that look similar to that, but are in the nonprofit world. One of the challenges that I have with what the government did is with food stamps, the cost of it was spread out between everybody in the country that contributed. So they cut it, and all of a sudden, that responsibility was put on the backs of people that have empathy for people that are hungry.
Mm.
So it's a much smaller pool that has to
Yeah.
contribute bigger dollars in order to get it to run.
Mm.
the government would be much better off taking that expense. And we could be doing other things.
Yeah.
But,
David, are you delivering the food?
sometimes, yeah, there's certain people. They come in, most people come pick it up. So when they come in, there's almost like a farmer's market.
Oh, okay.
So they're able, they check in, they go, they pick their food. This, when we have this up and running, we're starting to move clients to it now. When they go through the market, they'll actually check out at the end. That's the next goal.
So this is
for
almost a
us.
supermarket.
Right, and so,
food they need.
and, right, and then it'll just go against their numbers, everything that they're doing will go against their numbers to be able to.
So
make
is the
sure.
delivery portion of it a small portion of what you're doing?
15 today.
15.
And the other nonprofits, is the same thing for them?
Yeah, some of them don't deliver, but there's, there's a number of them that do.
So each of them have their own warehouse, if you will.
Yeah.
Supermarket.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the other challenges
That's
is
hard
that
to get you all together.
we're all over the place, where you could probably do this out of one building if you would just coordinate the efforts, so. So it's, I mean.
Right.
Oh.
You need Amazon's technology where people walk into the Amazon store and then they just walk out, and it counts everything and takes from their ID and.
Well, that's what I mean. You're funny you bring that up because I've been talking about Amazon for about 6 to 8 weeks now. Is that's the model? Is to being able to get the services you need in one space. And be effective at it. Amazon does a great job of getting things in and out. And
But they
do-
have these stores where you don't even have to
That's
like
right.
go through the cash register.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have
No.
that technology, at least not yet. But we are looking at, a way to do a checkout so we can, keep track to make sure that people are getting the food that they need. The time for, as I talked about before, the time of just giving people random bags of food, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So,
Is it,
go ahead.
is there a benefit for all the nonprofits to work together for them? Never mind.
Oh, I
their-
think so. I think it was, they're all concerned about losing money. Well, the way I look at it is, if everybody worked together, that story would be so compelling on a national level that we would all have more money than we need. Because we'd be working efficiently. Right, successfully, and our costs would drop dramatically. Because we wouldn't be, doing the same thing as some other organization is doing. It's unfortunate, but right now it is kind of the process that we're in. I'm just about out of time, but I just want to show you a couple of other things. It was mentioned, my intro, this is in 2020. You can take a look. So that's my wife and my granddaughter on the front.
Oh,
So,
Perfect image.
yeah, my wife is reading to my granddaughter at home. And so I walked in, I said, "Oh, grandmas can read," just kind of kidding around. And like a lot of things, I couldn't get that out of my head. And I said, well, no, grandmothers, because she had my grandmothers love to read.
Mm.
And so I connected with an illustrator out of the Ukraine. And we worked together, we collaborated on it. I wrote the words, she would do the drawings. And
beautiful.
2 months later, the book came out. And so now we use it in schools as kind of a start off. And for younger children, preschools, to get them reading. And so then the plan was, but obviously the Ukrainian war interrupted his grandpas love to read, big sisters love to read, big brothers love to read. So you get everybody in the family involved
yeah.
in reading.
Very nice.
Then about 3 months ago, I have a mother-in-law who's 86 years old. And my wife calls her every night at 8:45 on the phone. And my wife Alicia would ask her, "How you doing, Mom?" And she'd go, "Oh, I'm doing okay." I said, if I could see her face, then it would be a lot better. So I developed an application. It's called Boomer Chat because
Yeah.
of who we are. And so what this is we've simplified the video calling process. So if I wanted, this is my sister right here. If I want to call my sister, I just click on her face
Oh,
and a video chat starts. If I wanted to talk to up to 50 people, to my family and friends, I just press this group thing,
Yeah.
just click on the face I want to talk to, they all come up. So this emergency button here, if I'm actually gonna, it doesn't go to 911. What it does is it calls everybody in order in the family until it gets an answer. So in case she forgot to take her pills or she dropped her pills or whatever that is, she can just press this and it'll call everybody until it gets an answer, and then that person can deal with it. If my wife were to call my mother-in-law at 8:45 and not get an answer, then try again and not get an answer, try again, not get an answer. My wife, being one of the selected ones in here, can turn on the camera and the microphone at her mom's house. And so in case her mom has fallen or she's passed out in the chair that she's next to, that she'd be able to make that type of communication. And then finally, the 988 is the suicide hotline. We put this on here because there are some parents that have concerns about their teens. And it'd just be great to have a place where a kid could just press a button if he's thinking whatever he's thinking.
Is that
But-
available?
It is available. Yeah, it's in the app stores right now.
What on Android and
Yep.
iPhones?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
But that's, you gonna say something? Oh, that's kind of been who I am. I look, I'm usually solving my own problems
Yeah,
with
and
something.
there's a lot of them.
Right, there's a lot of things, exactly. And then, I sort of move it into something, okay, let's see if we can bring this to the masses to really try to help.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think she's seen, have you
you
seen?
got a problem, there's probably a lot of other people that.
That's
get the
right.
same thing.
Right.
Yeah,
So, all right, I think we're over time just a bit.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I had just one.
Sure.
Can the other 9, what are there, 9 more in Framingham? There's no David Blais in those 9?
There's not. We have to wait for them to pass away. I don't,
just want 1 or 2 of them and sort of work your way in.
right, yeah, no, there isn't. Unfortunately, there isn't.
what's the oldest one? Nonprofit. And the newest. Place to turn?
Yeah, I think the United Way's probably been around longer, but Place to Turn has been around a long time. I would have to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm probably 11 years, I'm probably the youngest though,
Yeah.
Right.
New guy in the block.
new guy in the block, yeah,
Yes, what we got, huh?
so. But it's,
So is there anything else that you can do to kind of melt their attitude about the whole thing?
well, I mean, we've talked about educating the donor. There,
With the other nonprofits, you mean?
No.
if you educate the donor, the nonprofits will move into a system if the donors ask them to. But the other thing, or the other way is, and I don't want this to sound threatening, is you have to make them obsolete. You change the
Keep growing.
you just make them obsolete.
Yeah.
And that's not where I want to go with this. Because it just puts more stress on us.
All right,
I would rather us coordinating. If we coordinated efforts, we'd all be working part-time.
Question from online. Could
Sure.
you talk about the quality of your prepared meals, the freezer program?
Yes, I can. My wife and I owned restaurants for 16 years. We know how to make food. Our frozen meals are restaurant quality, low salt, low sugar. And we care about everything that we do in there. You might get like baked haddock with a lobster bisque over the top of it. We've had filet mignon, we've had rack of lamb. There's all other types of things. My wife does a great job with that. And the freezers, we have 23 freezers in Framingham. We just got one into the Tufts Cancer Center. And we just put one into Ashland because we'll be expanding into Ashland over the next year or so.
And then briefly,
Sure.
could you just describe the other services, like the medical services and such that you provide in the same space?
Yeah, so we provide the space, they provide the services. It's been a great thing for our clients. I really wish that more of our clients would take advantage of it because it's just a great service. And, as we expand into the new building that we'll be building, we're looking to expand that part of it also.
would you have somebody like Spock? Have a chair in the corner or something like that?
Maybe. I mean, our goal right now is to have, the medical center.
Yeah.
We're working with or talking with someone about mental health. We're talking with Metro West Legal Services to have
Right,
so
yeah,
they
yeah,
can have an office there,
yeah.
and we'll coordinate it with some
And tie
others.
it all in together.
Right, try it all, put it all in together.
Amazon.
Yeah.
You provide desserts? Or do you leave that to the people?
We've been talking about snacks more and more, because the
Healthy
healthy snacks. But everyone should have a treat, a Twinkie once a month, maybe it will kill you, but.
Slowly.
But, it's those types of things, because, it can't always be, yes, we could always be, and we do always give out healthy food, but for a kid, a teenager, there's gotta be something in there that just, kind of lights them up a bit.
I just wanted to say, I've been to David's facility and his wife took me on a tour. It's unbelievable. She had this enormous kitchen and she was doing all that cooking herself. And she showed, it was
Wow.
just phenomenal. And then she showed me those freezers that are packed with all these wonderful meals. And I just couldn't believe how much you two do.
Well, the freezer program started, a mom came crying to a nurse at one of the schools that she didn't have food for her kids. And the nurse handed them Daniel's Table card and said, call Daniel's Table, they will take care of it. And we never got the phone call. Language barrier, pride, frustration, whatever it was, we
Right,
didn't
yeah.
get the phone call.
Yeah.
And so we knew that we needed an instant response. And so we put our first freezer into the Barberry School in
Wow.
Framingham, and it was really popular.
Oh,
And then we just, now they're in most of the schools. The community health center, like I said, there's 23 of them.
wow.
And so
Wow.
we're gonna
Excellent.
expand probably another 10 more in Framingham, and then we'll looking to move into Ashland with that program. That, over the years, you'll probably see that really grow, the freezer program, and we'll take a look at what the other things that we're doing.
Yeah.
So,
Any of the other nonprofits have that type of thing?
no.
No, it's all canned goods and what they can for fresh stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, so the way it works is you have proteins and vegetables in the freezer, and then you have pasta. You have proteins, vegetables, soups, and pasta sauces that we make in-house.
Mm.
Make our own pasta sauces, and then on top of the freezer is either pasta or rice. So it's a complete meal. So they take a pound of rice or a pound of pasta, they take a sauce or a soup, they take proteins, they take vegetables. And
Wow.
they're able to make meals from there. So,
Excellent.
but, all right, oh, go ahead.
You mentioned, a lawmaker that came to visit you 16 months ago, and he looked at your code and go, ooh, this is the missing link. Is anything going to happen with him? No. This is the missing link.
Right. Right after he came in August of 2022, so it actually hasn't been, it's been pretty close to 16 months. Then I went to Washington. I was invited to Washington to a conference there. And in the conference, I could, we talked about the 53 years between the two conferences. And Biden saying by 2030, we're going to end hunger. If we continue down this road,
Yeah,
it'll be another president in another 30 years saying, hey, we'll take another stab at it.
Yeah.
But it just isn't, it's not going to work, unfortunately. I mean, Richard Nixon, what came out of that conference was food stamps came out of that conference. It happened about 2 years later. But, things did come up, right, it was a step. Yeah, this one, I don't think we're gonna have that step there.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's a lot of good stuff happening.
Mhm.
And I know I've talked a lot about some of the bad stuff that's happening, but you have to start somewhere, to get an understanding of where we have to go.
Yeah,
This is where we are now. There's opportunities, if we just keep moving forward. There will be a younger generation coming up that I think will be more open to technology and knows. And so we're planning for that. So finally, I'll just do this real quick, because we've been talking about a building.
well,
So I purchased the land in 2018, 2021, but negotiated the price in 2017. So I paid what I offered the owner of the property 900,000. I came back to the office and everyone thought I was out of my mind. Like, that's too expensive, the
No,
property's
no,
not worth that. 5 years later, it was worth $1.7 million.
yeah,
So now I look like a hero. So I approached a builder and I said, look, this is what I'll do. You pay off our mortgage, $720,000. I'm gonna sell you the property. You can build your building, but I want the first floor for $120 a year for
Yeah.
the next 99 years.
yeah, excellent. Well,
And so Daniel's table is
there,
secure.
it's home.
Right, and he's putting the solar on the roof to power the first floor, so we'll save about $72,000 a year.
Oh, yeah, your kitchen.
So,
Is that where people will go to get the food?
Yeah.
Oh,
So we get an extra, I think it's 300 square feet. It is much larger originally. But you know how things go with the planning board, so now it's smaller. But we get about an extra 300 square feet, so we're about 6,800 square feet. So there'll be enough room for the clinic and enough room for all we wanna be able to do, but it'll be a blank space.
and when will that be built?
Building will come down about 4 or 5 months, and then a year to 18 months later. So,
Too bad,
no, it's not too bad.
couple of years.
But once it's done, it'll just, it'll be a showpiece for what we can do, because we'll be connecting technology to everything.
You can invite the government back.
Then we'll invite, okay.
More of a success.
Or, yeah. But okay, I want to thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.